I never imagined I'd be here, staring at my phone with shaking hands, feeling like my entire life was collapsing around me. Sarah and I had been together 11 years and married for 6. We have a lovely little girl who recently turned 2. Everything was meant to be flawless. So, how the hell did I get here? It began with a Facebook message from a complete stranger. Normally, I would disregard it, but something compelled me to open it. Perhaps it was fate or simply dumb luck. Regardless, it altered everything. The message came from someone claiming to be Tom's mother-in-law, Sarah's coworker. She had emailed me 15 screenshots from their Instagram talks. As I scrolled through them, I felt nauseous. Sarah had written, "Hey there, handsome. Missing our chair time already." Is it time for the chair? What the fuck did that mean? I continued reading, my eyes widening with each flirty message, inside joke, and goddamn kissy face emoji. This was more than simply nice coworker conversation. This was something else entirely. When I heard Sarah's footsteps coming down the stairs, I hurriedly secured my phone. My heart was racing so rapidly, I feared it would burst out of my chest. "Hey, babe," Sarah said cheerfully, as if nothing were wrong. "What is for dinner?" "I am starving!" I took a deep breath and tried to hold my voice steady. "Sarah," I began, barely recognizing my own voice, "did anything happen on your work trip that I should know about?" I saw it. Her eyes were filled with panic for a short second before she calmed herself down. "What? No, absolutely not. Why are you asking that?" My stomach churned. I recognized the look. I had seen it before when Sarah lied about her drinking. "Are you sure? Nothing at all?" Sarah's gaze flashed across the room, looking everywhere but at me. "I'm not sure what you're talking about, Jake. The journey was fine. Normal, boring even. I could feel wrath rising within me. How could she stand there and lie to me? Cut the bullshit, Sarah. I know something happened to Tom." "I have seen the messages." Sarah's face turned white. "Messages? What messages?" I opened my phone and held it out to show one of the screenshots. "These messages are for Sarah. Can you clarify what chair time means?" Sarah's entire demeanor altered in an instant. The confused innocence had given way to guarded rage. "Are you spying on me now?" Going through my private conversations, I couldn't believe what I heard. "Are you fooling me now? Is that what you're worrying about? Not the fact that you're flirting with a coworker behind my back?" Sarah's shoulders dropped, and the fight seemed to leave her. "It isn't what it seems, Jake. We just got drunk in the hotel bar. Things got a little out of hand, but nothing significant occurred." I felt like I had been hit in the stomach. "Did you get drunk? Sarah, you have been sober for 6 years. We discussed this before your travel." "You promised to be careful." Sarah had the decency to show shame. "Yes, I understand. It was dumb. I believed I could manage it. Just having a beer or two with coworkers, you know? But then 2 became 4 and I do not know. It's all a little fuzzy." I ran my hands through my hair, feeling as if I was about to explode. "So, Sarah, what happened?" "And don't ever lie to me again." Sarah sighed and sank into a chair at the kitchen table. "We kissed, okay, Tom and I. We were inebriated, returned to my room, and kissed. That is all." I narrowed my gaze at her. "Is that all? You expect me to believe that?" "It's the truth," Sarah insisted. "We kissed for a bit while sitting in the chair in my room, hence the chair time statement. But then I started to feel sick. Too much to drink, you know? I wound up on the bathroom floor for a while. Tom stayed to make sure I was fine, but nothing else happened. I swear, God, I wanted to believe her. However, the knot in my stomach told me there was more to the story. And the next night, the screenshots show that you invited him to your room again." Sarah's eyes widened. "How much did you see?" "Enough," I replied harshly. "So, what happened on the second night?" Sarah gazed down at her hands. "We kissed again. But I was sober at the time. It was a mistake, Jake. It was a stupid mistake. I felt as if I was drowning. How did we get here? I remembered the talk we had before Sarah's vacation about her desire to drink again. I'd been opposed to it, knowing all too well the troubles alcohol had brought in the past. But Sarah insisted she could manage it now and that she would take responsibility. You just have to trust me, babe. She texted me on the first night of the vacation when I questioned how much she'd had to drink. Trust. The word tasted like ash in my mouth now. Why, Sarah? I inquired, my voice breaking. Why did you do this? I thought we were happy. Sarah glanced up at me with tears in her eyes. We're happy, Jake. I love you. I adore our lives together. It was just... I'm not sure. The excitement, I suppose. The sense of being desired. It was new and exciting and... God, I'm sorry, Jake. It meant nothing, I swear. I rose up hurriedly, wanting to get away from her. I need some air, I said as I headed for the door. Jake, wait! Sarah called after me. Please, can we talk about this? But I was already out the door, my head racing. I went aimlessly along our peaceful suburban street, trying to make sense of everything. How well did I actually know Sarah? Was this a one-time error or an indication of larger issues? And how the heck were we expected to proceed from here? I did not have any answers. I only knew that our life together would never be the same again. The trust we'd created over 11 years had shattered in a matter of minutes, and I had no idea if we'd ever be able to put it back together. As the sun sank on our once perfect lives, I wondered if this was the beginning of the end, or a painful new beginning. Only time will tell. I'm not sure how long I explored the streets that night. My mind was whirling with memories, doubts, and treachery. Every beautiful memory Sarah and I had shared suddenly seemed contaminated, as if someone had splattered black paint all over our family photos. When I eventually got back home, the house was quiet. I could hear Sarah's muffled weeping through the bedroom door. Part of me wanted to console her. Old habits die hard, I suppose. But a larger part of me couldn't bear the idea of being near her just now. I flopped on the couch and stared at the ceiling till the first rays of sunlight broke through the drapes. Sleep was a lost cause. My eyes were filled with sand, and my thoughts were no clearer than the night before. The fragrance of coffee soon drew me into the kitchen. Sarah was there, looking just as distraught as I felt. When our eyes met, I saw the lady I fell in love with, vulnerable and apologetic. But then the image of her communications to Tom went across my head, and the feeling of betrayal returned. Jake, she exclaimed, her voice husky. Can we talk? I nodded stiffly. Yeah, I think we'd better. We sat at the kitchen table, 2 mugs of steaming coffee separating us like a thin barrier. Sarah took a long breath, and I readied myself for what was coming. I am aware that I made a mistake, Jake. I'm very sorry. But I swear it wasn't as horrible as you may expect. I clenched my jaw, attempting to control my wrath. Then enlighten me, Sarah. What exactly happened? She started telling her narrative, words falling out in a rush. We were in the hotel bar after a long day of meetings. Everyone was drinking, and I figured I could take it. Just a few to socialize, you know? How many is a few? I inquired, my eyes narrowing. Sarah squirmed in her seat. Perhaps 4 or 5? And a few shots. Jesus, Sarah, I mumbled. After 6 years sober, you didn't think that might be a bit much? I know, she murmured, her eyes lowered. That was dumb. I got carried away. So then what happened? Sarah's cheeks flushed, and my stomach tightened. Tom offered to walk me back to my room. I was somewhat wobbly. When we arrived, I invited him inside for water. We were talking, and then he kissed me. And you just let him? I couldn't keep the rage in my voice. No, yes, but it was not like that. It was a surprise, and then... I'm not sure, Jake. It just happened. I could feel my frustration building. Things do not just happen, Sarah. You make choices. Tears filled her eyes. You're correct. I made a poor decision. We kissed for a long sitting in that stupid chair, but then I started to feel sick. I spent part of the night in the bathroom heaving up. Tom stayed to make sure I was fine, but he slept on the opposite side of the bed. I swear, nothing else happened. My mind was reeling. I stood up, needing to move and do something with my restless energy. And the next night, the communications indicate that you invited him to your room again. Sarah's face wrinkled. I did. God, I'm not sure what I was thinking. We kissed again, but I was sober at the time. It was brief, and I sent him away. I felt terrible, Jake. I knew something was wrong. I paced the kitchen, attempting to digest everything. How long has this gone on, Sarah? And do not lie to me. I saw enough in those communications to realize that wasn't just a two-night stand. Sarah's shoulders slumped. The flirting started in October, she said gently. It seemed harmless at first, just some foolish office banter, you know? But then it started spreading to SMS and Instagram messaging. Harmless? I couldn't believe what I heard. You call secretly flirting with a coworker for months harmless? I didn't think it would go anywhere, Sarah protested. It was just fun. Exciting. It made me feel better. Her words struck me like a slap in the face. And I don't make you feel better? Is our marriage and family not thrilling enough for you? That's not what I meant, Sarah cried. I love you, Jake. I adore our lives together. It was simply different. A thrill, I suppose, but it means nothing. Tom does not mean anything to me. I shook my head, disbelief written across my face. Why risk everything for someone who doesn't mean anything to you? Was our marriage, your sobriety, really worth it? Sarah put her face into her hands. No, she whispered. Oh God, no. I damaged everything, didn't I? I slumped back into my chair, feeling weary. I do not know, Sarah. I just don't know. We sat in quiet for a long, the weight of her betrayal weighing heavily on us. Finally, I spoke again, attempting to keep my voice steady. I need to know everything, Sarah. There will be no more trickle truth, no more minimizing. I want the entire story beginning to end. Sarah nodded and wiped her eyes. Okay, I will tell you everything. For the next hour, Sarah revealed the full nature of her emotional affair with Tom, the long glances at work, the inside jokes, and the more flirty communications. She stated how the prospect of seeing him every day had become a thrill, and how his attention made her feel bright and appealing in ways she hadn't in years. But I never wanted to leave you, she said. I never considered it. It was only a fantasy, I suppose, an escape. I listened, feeling as if each word caused another split in my heart. When Sarah ended, I felt tired, as if her story had sucked all of my energy away. What happens now? Sarah questioned timidly. Where do we go from here? I rubbed my palm over my face, feeling the stubble from my sleepless night. Honestly, I have no idea. I can't look at you right now without picturing you with him, and the lying, Sarah. How can I ever trust you again? Sarah reached across the table, but her hand stopped short of touching mine. I will do whatever it takes, Jake. Counseling, complete openness, or whatever. I know I messed up, but please, don't give up on us. I stepped up, seeking space. I need time to think, and you have to figure out why you did this. Because it just occurred isn't adequate. Definitely not. As I exited the room, my head was filled with questions. Could we get past this? Should we even try? And how about our daughter? The future I had always pictured for our family now felt remote and unachievable. One thing was certain: nothing would be the same again. Only time would tell whether that meant the end of our marriage or the difficult start of a new chapter. For the time being, all I could do was try to navigate the treacherous waters of treachery, one day at a time. The following several days were a jumble of sleepless nights and heated discussions. Sarah and I circled each other like wary animals, both terrified of saying the wrong thing. I had taken a few days off work, citing a family issue. It was not exactly a lie. I spent a lot of time in our backyard simply sitting and thinking. Emma, our daughter, would toddle out to me, her face wrinkled up with perplexity. "Daddy sad?" she'd say, coming into my lap. I'd hug her tightly, unsure how I'd ever explain this to her. Sarah approached me during one of these moments, as Emma was playing nearby. She appeared worried, holding a notebook in her hands. "Jake," she replied softly, "I've been reflecting a lot on what you said. About discovering out why I actually did this. I wrote something down, if you'd want to hear them." I nodded and motioned for her to seat. She sat on the edge of the patio chair, her knuckles white around the notebook. "I want to understand," I said. "I need to understand." Sarah took a big breath. "Okay." So, I've been doing a lot of soul searching to figure out how this all started. I assume it dates back to Emma's birth. I frowned. What do you mean? Don't get me wrong, Sarah replied immediately. I adore Emma more than anything, but after she was born, I felt like I'd lost a piece of me. I was no longer just Sarah. I was Emma's mother and your wife. My entire identity was bound up in those roles. I listened, trying to keep an open mind despite the hurt that was still burning within of me. And then there was the drinking, Sarah explained. I had been sober for a long time and was proud of it. But witnessing you drink a beer with dinner or seeing others enjoy a glass of wine made me despise it. I felt left out, as if I was losing out on an important aspect of adulthood. You've never said anything, I said. Sarah shrugged. I did not want to bother you. I thought I could do it on my own. But then the work trip came along, and there was this chance to be simply Sarah again. I am not a mother, nor am I a recovering alcoholic. Just me. I nodded slowly, beginning to understand where this was going. And Tom? Sarah's cheeks reddened. Tom was new, exciting. He didn't recognize me as Emma's mother or as someone who had a drinking problem. He only saw me as a pleasant, flirtatious coworker. And I liked that sensation. I enjoyed being seen that way again. But why didn't you talk to me about any of this? I inquired, annoyance coming into my voice. We could have worked on it together. I found techniques to make you feel more like yourself again. Sarah's eyes filled with tears. I do not know, Jake. I suppose I was terrified. I was afraid you would not understand or would think I was being selfish. And perhaps I was being selfish. I lost track of what was truly essential. We sat quietly for a long, watching Emma play with her bricks. I finally spoke again. What would have occurred if I hadn't found out? How far would this thing with Tom have gotten? Sarah gazed down at her hands. Honestly, I do not know. I'd want to believe it would have stopped at kissing, but I'm not sure. It was as if I was engrossed in this fantasy and not thinking properly about the ramifications. Her remarks stung, but I admired her honesty. And now? Do you still feel for him? Sarah shook her head vehemently. No, God, no, Jake, my feelings for Tom are nothing compared to my feelings for you. He was only a diversion, a method to feel good about myself for a short time. But it was not real. We have a real family, and I've been such an idiot to put everything at risk. I groaned and ran a hand over my hair. Sarah, I want to believe you. I do, but how can I trust anything you say now? How can I be confident that this will not happen again the next time you feel lost or unfulfilled? Sarah reached out and tentatively placed her hand on mine. I did not draw away. I know I have to regain your trust, Jake, and I will. Whatever it takes. I will go to therapy and learn healthy ways to deal with my emotions. I will be absolutely upfront about everything. Just do not give up on us. I gazed at her for the first time in days. Her eyes were filled with remorse and anxiety of losing everything. Despite my rage and sadness, I sensed a glimmer of optimism. Maybe we can find a way out of this. Okay, I replied softly. We will try. But Sarah, this is your final chance. If anything like this happens again, it won't, she added, squeezing my hand. I swear to Jake, never again. We spent the next few hours conversing as we hadn't in years. Sarah told up about her difficulties with motherhood and her anxieties of losing her individuality. I confessed my own insecurities, how I'd observed her withdrawing but hadn't known how to approach her. As the light began to drop, Emma toddled over to us, rubbing her eyes tiredly. Up, Daddy, she muttered. I snatched her up and after a moment of uncertainty, extended my other arm to Sarah. She approached us and for a minute we stood together as a family, holding each other. It wasn't forgiveness just yet. We had a long journey ahead of us, filled with therapy sessions, unpleasant conversations, and regaining trust. But that was a start. That night as I lay in bed, still in the guest room, some wounds take time to heal, I reflected on all we had discussed. The discomfort was still present, a dull throbbing in my chest. But there was a glimmer of something else. Hopefully, maybe, or determination. Whatever it was, I knew one thing for sure. Our story wasn't done. Only time would tell if this hardship would make us stronger or break us apart. But for Emma's sake, and the love we'd created over 11 years, we were going to try. As I fell asleep, I made a quiet commitment to myself and my family. We would confront it head-on, united, and no matter what occurred, I would make sure we came out with our dignity and love for Emma intact. It was all I and all of us could do to take each day as it came. A week after D-Day, or Discovery Day, as I had started calling it in my thoughts, I was still battling to regain my feet. Sarah and I were conversing more, but there remained a lingering tension between us. Despite the fact that she had given me complete access to all of her accounts and messages, every beep on her phone made my stomach knot. It was at one of these moments, when Sarah's phone rang with a new email, that I noticed a name that chilled my blood. Lisa Thompson, Tom's wife. "Sarah," I whispered, my voice tense. "Tom's wife has just emailed you." Sarah's face became pallid. "What? Why would she? What is it saying?" I handed her the phone and watched her expression as she read. Her eyes widened and she looked up at me, panic on her face. "She wants to meet with both of us," Sarah replied, scarcely audible. I felt a variety of feelings, including wrath, curiosity, and terror. "Do you think we should?" Sarah chewed her lip, contemplating. "Maybe it might help to hear her side of things and to apologize in person." I nodded slowly. "All right. Set it up." 2 days later, we were sitting in a quiet coffee shop waiting for Lisa Thompson. I was a ball of nerves, my leg jumping violently beneath the table. Sarah stretched out and placed her hand on my knee, intending to calm me. "I admired your attempt, even if it didn't completely work." When Lisa walked in, I was surprised by how normal she appeared. Part of me expected a larger-than-life figure to compete with my wife for Tom's attention, but Lisa was just a woman, petite, with shoulder-length brown hair and sad eyes. She saw us and approached, her motions hesitating. "Jake, Sarah," she continued, nodding to each of us as she sat. "Thank you for meeting me." I cleared my throat. "Of course. We thought it was important." Lisa fixed her gaze on Sarah, who squirmed. "I suppose I should begin by stating that I am not here to cause a scene or to try to end your marriage. God knows Tom has already caused enough damage." Sarah cringed at Lisa's caustic tone. "I'm very sorry, Lisa. What happened was a horrible error. I never intended to injure anyone." Lisa's laughter was empty. "Nobody ever does, do they? However, intentions do not influence the outcome." Regardless, I felt a wave of protectiveness for Sarah. "Look, we are all hurting here. Perhaps we could just speak it out. Try to figure out what happened." Lisa nodded, releasing some of the tightness in her shoulders. "You're correct. I apologize. It's just that Tom has done this before." Sarah's head snapped upward. "What?" "Oh, yes," Lisa replied with a sorrowful smile on her lips. "Tom has a history of job indiscretions, usually just flirtation and maybe a drunken kiss. But this time..." She trailed off while glancing at Sarah. I could feel my rage growing again. "Is he a serial cheater? And you knew about his background when you confronted Sarah?" Lisa nodded. "I had my doubts when he left for a business trip. I've learned to recognize the indications, so I may have hacked his Instagram account." "That's how your mother got those screenshots," I remembered. "Yes," Lisa replied. "I apologize for the roundabout way I informed you, Jake. I felt you should know." We sat quietly for a minute, each engrossed in our own thoughts. Sarah finally spoke up. "Lisa, I can't describe how sorry I am. If I'd known about Tom's background..." Lisa raised a hand. "Would it have made any difference? Really?" Sarah faltered. "I would like to think so. But you're correct. I made my own decisions. I saw this interaction feeling like an outsider in my own marital drama." "So what happens now?" I asked. "Are you and Tom..." Lisa's face stiffened. "I have filed for divorce. This was the final straw. I deserve better than to question if my husband is faithful." Her comments hit me like a punch in the stomach. Isn't that exactly what I was confronting right now? Is the future one of constant wondering and doubt? Lisa turned to face me. as if she had read my thinking. "Jake, I know it's not my place, but can I offer you some advice?" I nodded, intrigued despite myself. "Do not let this define you or your marriage. Sarah and Tom's actions were clearly incorrect. However, don't let their error define the rest of your life. If you want it to work, fight for it. And if you don't, there's nothing wrong with walking away." I felt tears welling up in my eyes. "How do you know? How can you be so calm about all of this?" Lisa's expression was sorrowful but determined. "Practice, regrettably, and a lot of treatment. Speaking of which, I wholeheartedly suggest it. For both of you." We talked for an additional hour, sharing tales and gave each other support. By the time we left the coffee shop, I felt different, not necessarily better. I could see a way forward even if it was cloudy and uncertain. As we headed to the car, Sarah stretched out for my hand. I paused for a moment before accepting it. "Jake," she continued softly, "I know I've said it before, but I'm deeply sorry. Seeing Lisa, hearing about Tom's past, I feel ill thinking about how I could have been just another notch on his belt." I gripped her hand. "I understand, Sarah, and I believe you are sorry, but it doesn't fix everything," she added for me. I nodded. "We have a long way to go, but I think we might be able to get there. If we both truly want it." Sarah's eyes flooded with tears. "I really want it, Jake, more than anything." As we drove home, I reflected on Lisa's words. Do not let this define you. It was easier said than done, of course, but just maybe we can use this as a tipping moment, a chance to make our marriage stronger and more honest. Sarah turned to me that night as we lay in bed. I had returned to our chamber for the first time since D-Day. "Jake, do you think we should look into couples therapy and perhaps individual therapy for me?" I felt a weight lifted off my chest. It wasn't forgiveness just yet. Nonetheless, it was a positive step forward. "Yeah," I replied, reaching out to brush a strand of hair off her face. "I think that's a great idea." As we fell asleep, I sensed a glimpse of hope. We faced a long road ahead of us, filled with hard labor and painful conversations. But for the first time since the chaos began, I felt like we might actually make it. Here's part 5. Addressing the underlying issues, continuing Jake's first-person perspective. The weeks following our meeting with Lisa were a whirlwind of emotions and revelations. Sarah and I had started couples therapy, and she was seeing an individual therapist as well. It was hard work, dredging up issues we'd both been avoiding for years, but I could already see small changes. One evening, after a particularly intense therapy session, Sarah and I sat on our back porch watching the sunset. Emma was already in bed, giving us a rare moment of quiet. "Jake," Sarah said, her voice hesitant, "there's something I need to talk to you about." I felt that familiar knot of anxiety in my stomach. "What is it?" She took a deep breath. "In my individual therapy sessions, we've been discussing, well, my feelings about our marriage, about intimacy and excitement." I braced myself, unsure where this was going. "Okay. I've realized that part of what led me to what happened with Tom was a desire for novelty, for that rush of excitement that comes with something new." She rushed on, seeing the hurt on my face. "But I don't want that to come at the expense of our marriage. So I've been thinking." "About what?" I asked, my voice tight. Sarah bit her lip. What if we tried to bring some of that excitement back into our relationship? In a healthy way, I mean." I raised an eyebrow. "What exactly are you suggesting?" "Nothing crazy," she said quickly. "Maybe date nights where we pretend to be strangers meeting for the first time, or, I don't know, trying new things in the bedroom." I felt a mix of relief and unease. "Sarah, I appreciate that you're trying to find solutions, but I'm not sure I'm comfortable with role play right now. It feels too close to, well, you know." She nodded, looking disappointed but understanding. "Of course, I get that. It was just an idea." We sat in silence for a moment before Sarah spoke again, her voice even more hesitant than before. There's something else I've been thinking about, but I'm afraid you'll hate it." My heart rate picked up. "What is it?" Sarah took a deep breath. What if we considered opening up our marriage just a little bit? I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. What? Not like sleeping with other people, she rushed to clarify, but maybe flirting, harmless flirting with boundaries, like you could have someone at work you banter with, and I could too, but we'd be completely transparent about it. I stood up, needing to put some distance between us. Are you serious right now, Sarah? After everything that's happened, you want permission to flirt with other people? Sarah's eyes filled with tears. I know it sounds crazy, but I thought, maybe if we could channel those desires in a controlled way? No, I said firmly. Absolutely not. That's not a solution, Sarah. That's just asking for more trouble. She nodded, wiping her eyes. You're right. I'm sorry, I don't know how to fix this. How to fix us. I sat back down, my anger fading into exhaustion. Sarah, the problem isn't that our marriage isn't exciting enough. The problem is that you made a choice to betray my trust. Adding more people to the mix isn't going to solve that. I know, she whispered. I'm so sorry, Jake. I just want to make things right. I reached out and took her hand. I know you do. And I appreciate that you're trying to find solutions. But what we need right now is to rebuild our foundation, to learn how to communicate better, how to meet each other's needs within our marriage. Sarah squeezed my hand. You're right. Of course you're right. I'm scared, Jake. Scared that you'll never be able to trust me again. Scared that one day you'll wake up and decide this is all too much work and leave. Her vulnerability hit me hard. Despite everything, I still loved this woman. I'm scared too, I admitted. But I'm here, aren't I? I'm fighting for us. As long as you're fighting too, I'm not going anywhere. We sat there, hand in hand, watching the last rays of sunlight disappear. It wasn't a perfect moment. There was still too much pain and uncertainty between us for that. But it felt like progress. The next few weeks were a roller coaster. We had good days where it felt like we were reconnecting, rediscovering why we fell in love in the first place. And we had bad days where the smallest thing would trigger my anger or Sarah's guilt. One of the biggest hurdles came when Sarah had to go on another work trip. The same quarterly meeting where everything had fallen apart last time. We both knew Tom wouldn't be there. He'd been transferred to a different department after the affair came to light, but that didn't make it any easier. The night before she left, we sat on our bed, Sarah's suitcase open between us. I don't have to go, she said softly. I can tell them I'm sick. I shook my head. No, you should go. We can't avoid every difficult situation forever. Sarah nodded, then hesitated before pulling something out of her purse. It was a small flip phone. I got this, she said. It only calls and texts. No internet, no apps. I thought, maybe it would help you feel more secure while I'm away. I felt a lump in my throat. It was a small gesture, but it meant a lot. Thank you, I said. That does help. We spent that night just holding each other, neither of us sleeping much. In the morning, I drove her to the airport. As we said goodbye, Sarah looked up at me, her eyes shining with unshed tears. I love you, Jake, she said. Only you. Always you. I pulled her close, breathing in her familiar scent. I love you too. Call me when you land, okay? As I watched her walk through security, I felt a mix of fear and hope. We still had a long way to go, but we were moving forward. Together. That night, as I tucked Emma into bed, she looked up at me with her big, innocent eyes. Daddy, when is Mommy coming home? I smiled, smoothing her hair back. In a few days, sweetheart, but guess what? She's going to call us before bedtime every night. Emma's face lit up. Promise? Promise, I said, feeling a warmth in my chest. Whatever happened between Sarah and me, we would always have our love for our daughter. As I closed Emma's door, my phone buzzed with a text. It was from Sarah's new flip phone. Made it to the hotel, missing you both already. Love you. I typed back, we miss you too. Stay safe. Love you. It wasn't perfect. We still had a lot of work to do, but as I got ready for bed that night, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. Real, genuine hope for our future. Whatever came next, we would face it together.